Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's November 29th, 2021. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, it's Team No Sleep over here at CaneSport, man. Crazy times, rumors every 5 seconds. Is Manny staying? Is Manny going? Is Mario coming? Is Mario going? What's going on with Lane? Then you got guys like Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma to go to USC. Schools tripping over themselves to pay football coaches $9-10 million a year, which is totally 100% impacting anything that Miami might be thinking about doing, because the price just keeps going up and up, and schools are going to have money. And quite frankly, it hurts a school like Miami that just doesn't have the same resources as some of these state schools, and it puts extra pressure on the situation behind the scenes. And we'll talk about all of that as we move forward here. But Matt, let's start with the weekend. Solid victory at Duke. I mean, you can't disrespect the way that Manny Diaz and the Hurricanes finished the season. Charleston Rambo, Mike Harley in the record books, Tyler Van Dymes, just an amazing run of 300-plus yard passing days. And he keeps this up, and he's going to be in the record books too. And Matt, it's just, I mean, I know that we're so focused on change and if there's going to be change and a new coach and all that, but man, I mean, the metamorphosis that at least the offense took on here in the last part of the season, I mean, it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the transformation of the offense under Rhett Lashlee was tremendous to me. The biggest question now is where you go from here. It's going to be really interesting to see, because let's face it, the offense carried this team all year. The defense was awful. And if they don't have the same production on offense next year, I mean, it doesn't matter who the coach is. I mean, the players are the same. Like, you can win the greatest coach in the world. I always say that. Like, the players are the players. You can't change that much in 1 year unless you bring in just a ton of transfers who are all high-level transfers. So, Tyler Van Dyke obviously is the real deal. But you still have to have a guy calling the plays correctly and analyzing the defense correctly and making the correct game plans. And, I thought Rhett did a great job of that. We had some problems with him early in the year. You and I both, agreed there were some issues. But in retrospect, I think a lot of it had to do with De'Aaron King's physical limitations and Rhett trying to protect him. And, we've already talked about how I think that was a mistake in retrospect. Even, I think Tyler Van Dyke should have been the guy from day one, obviously, what we know now. But it is what it is,
But in fairness, the whole program going into the season was built on the shoulders of De'Aaron King. And, they felt that he was healthy. Like, they didn't feel that he had physical limitations. When they came out of training camp and went to play Alabama, they felt like they had a healthy quarterback. But the thing that happened was, I think that very quickly changed, Matt. I mean, he got hurt very early in the Alabama game. Didn't really say anything about it, but his knee, took some pretty good hits. And he did get re-injured to some degree in the Alabama game, and then started taking additional hits and getting hurt in other places. So by game 2 and 3, he was a beaten up quarterback, and, it was something was going to give, and it did. So, they kind of lucked into this Tyler Van Dyke situation, and credit to Tyler for the way he elevated his game as the season went on, just kept getting better and better every single week. But I don't know, like, I hear you, and I hear what you're saying about that man, what if he had started the year as the quarterback? But I still come back to what I've said many times. Like, when we were watching these guys in spring and fall camp, we didn't see the same Tyler Van Dyke, and we didn't see a discernible difference between the quarterbacks.
I don't know how many times we can keep going back and saying the same thing over and over again. I'll stick by what I've always said, which is Rhett Lashlee is the
They
quarterback.
didn't put him in enough full speed situations against the number one defense to see what they really had.
Well, no, he was going against the number one defense, but with a number 2 and number 3 offense. You're not going to see what you have in that situation. I mean, go ones against ones, give him some chances. And by the way,
but in spring practice, there was no De'Ara King. Just remember, you got to remember that.
Yeah, that was spring practice. Behind the scenes, I'm not, listen, you could say De'Ara King was 100%. He was not 100%. Like, I know people in that, who worked helping rehab De'Ara King. He was not 100%. I don't care what people say. He wasn't. Like, he was 100% structurally. He was cleared to play. But, like, what people don't understand is, like, when you have that injury, and people do understand it, but maybe, in his specific case, they don't understand it. You could be just as fast and everything else, but you may not have strengthened that leg sufficiently. That's really what the rehab is about, is balancing the strength in both legs, balancing your entire strength of your body, getting that knee, and not the knee, but the muscles around it, so strong that you won't have a recurrence of injury, and so that you're not favoring that knee and hurting a different part of your body. And they wanted De'Ara to wear a knee brace. I know they did. That's a fact. He refused to wear it. Like, the whole thing was a little, to me, like, we just have to play De'Ara no matter what. And I think if they knew what they had in Tyler Van Dyke at the time, and they should have known what they had, I mean, how could they not? It would have been an easy call to me in retrospect. Instead of throwing out a De'Ara King who you're trying to protect against Alabama, which you can't do, you throw a young kid to the Wolves, you hope that he learns from it. Game 2, you probably lose that one also, and then you're off to the races. And they would have a better record now. There's no doubt in my mind with Tyler Van Dyke starting the entire season than what they wound up with. I think that's true. I'll stand by that.
The other thing you can't minimize is that when Jake Garcia gets hurt, and now Tyler's a starting quarterback without a real number 2. I mean, they would have thrown somebody out there if they had to. He's getting the majority of the practice reps, and that's a big deal too. That's almost like playing another game every week between games, when you're getting an extra 20, 30, 40 snaps every day at practice and getting the mental reps and working with the receivers. And, so I think it all came together. It was the perfect storm for Tyler Van Dyke. And congratulations to the kid, great second half of the season. And obviously there'll be a great deal of excitement going into 2022. Now, Matt, you made a great point. I mean, I think one thing that you have to consider is not going to be any Charleston Rambo next year. He's made a ton of plays. He's accounted for a lot of yards. Setting the single season record for receiving yards and receptions. So that's on Tyler Van Dyke's stats predominantly. And that's going to all disappear next year. And one of these other guys, whether it's Jacoby George, Keyshawn Smith, somebody is going to have to step up and fill that role next year. Maybe they even dip into the transfer portal again for number 1 receiver. We'll see. Like Matt said, it's going to be a big deal who's calling the plays. I'm expecting Rob Likens to do that in the bowl game. But the bowl game is going to be a meaningless bowl game. It'll be game on again in the fall. If Manny Diaz sticks, does he give Rob Likens the coordinator job and try to keep the same system going? Does he bring in a new offensive coordinator? That would obviously be subplots that we would be following in the days ahead. But Matt, the first thing that has to be determined is whether Manny Diaz is staying or going. From what sources have told me, his buyout goes down after Wednesday. Wednesday's December 1st. So obviously his contract is written that on December 1st, his buyout goes down. So if there's going to be change, obviously they've been waiting till December 1st. I mean, it might go down a couple $1 million or something. So, over a couple days, you want to save the money.
You keep talking about the buyout. I keep telling you, it doesn't. If they could have fired him a month ago, 2 months ago, and just had him agree to take the same buyout. Listen, Manny, we could just keep you here for 2 months and pay you that, or you can take it now and take the next 2 months off and look for another job, whatever. Or,
why would
Manny, you're finishing the season, you're the coach, but we're going to let everyone know we're going to be getting a new coach after the year, and you don't fire him until after December 1st anyway. Like, I don't understand why you keep talking about the buyouts going down. They could have already.
Because it's very significant. I mean, think about it. If you fire Manny a month ago, okay, you got to pay his full buyout, because why would his agent?
Not true. Not if you.
Why would his agent negotiate that?
Because otherwise, you force him to keep coaching. You just say, "Listen, you'll finish the season as a coach, but we're getting a new coach."
You wanted to finish the season.
You announce it and you let him finish the season as the coach. What's the difference?
No.
Teams do that all the time.
So
he's going to finish the year as our coach. We're getting a new coach.
Yeah, I understand, but there's no way that Manny's agent would have negotiated a couple million.
Then you let him finish the year and you announce to the fans.
Well, that's what
the
they
fan
did.
base is so upset right now. You lose all your fans. When you announce that, the pressure's off, man. The fans are happy. They know there's going to be change. It could have been done. It could have been done if they wanted to.
There's conflicting forces that have been at work here. Like, you have some people that are upset that Manny wasn't fired in the middle of the season. Well, if you're a fan and you want to see the program do well and the team win games, they won 5 of their last 6. So, whether he gets fired or not after Wednesday is a whole separate subject. I mean, it has nothing to do with what went on the last half of the season. They're 7-5. That's the bottom line. They're not even close to the top teams in college football. And if the university doesn't put their head in the sand and ignore that, it's smacking them in the face. Miami is not close to being competitive. 5 of 6 wins or no 5 of 6 wins to end the season. But they also would have had to name an interim coach and give that person a raise. It would have cost them several $1 million to make a change during the season. They chose not to do it. It turned out to be the right decision because of how well the team played and the fact that it was a representative product the last half of the season. I would argue that the second half of the season, Miami was playing as well as anybody in this top seed.
Here's where people are going to have a problem with you saying that.
Well, it's true. I don't have any problem saying that.
Can I even talk?
No, you can't.
What to say. All right.
Who's played better than Miami the second half of the season in the ACC?
I'm trying to explain to you why fans will have a problem with what you just said. The problem will be because Miami won 5 of the last 6, Manny keeps his job, and then next year the team's a disaster, and now you can't get Mario anymore for whatever reason. Fans will say that mirage at the end of last year cost us our future. That's what fans are going to have a problem with.
Yeah, but they can't let that be their decision-making process, in my opinion. If they do, shame on them.
If Manny stays, it's because of the last 6 games. Period. Of course. If he had lost 3 of those last 6 games, there's not even a decision.
To me, the decision is, can Manny Diaz take Miami football to the next level? Period. That is the decision. They are not even close to Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State in these schools.
Right. That's how you look at it. But how the University of Miami administration looks at it is, we got better. We won 5 out of 6. We were a 4th and 14 stop away and a mental bust away from 6 wins in a row.
They're looking for an excuse to stay where they are if they do that.
Potentially, yes. Or because otherwise it could have been done already.
That's up to them. But listen, they may keep Manny, they may not keep Manny. But to me, this is a decision about the future of Miami football. What do you want to be? And can this coach be the CEO of a program that gets to an Alabama, Georgia level? Period. And if the answer is no, then you got to make a change. And we'll see what happens here in the coming days.
Let me ask you a question, okay? Let's say they bring in an actual real athletic director, not one of these businessmen, not a hand-picked successor of whoever the new coach is, if there is a new coach, right? So you bring in an athletic director who's a heavy hitter, who's done it before, who understands athletic director position, honestly, is as much about politics as it is about, doing things the right way, okay? So now, with that said, you hire a new athletic director. You say to him, it's your decision on Manny. As of now, we're keeping him, but, you figure things out, which could happen depending when the athletic director is hired. And if you're the athletic director, Gary, here's the problem. Okay, if you're a real athletic director, you understand the politics of the situation and you understand how things look. If you say within a few days or a week or whatever it is, I've made an analysis of the program, Manny Diaz has to go, we're going to hire a new coach. Okay, let's say you do that. And now let's say that new coach does not pan out in those first 2 or 3 years. You as the athletic director will be fired. Just like Blake James made his bed with Manny Diaz, you will now be in bed with that situation. However, if you say, listen, I just got here, I'm hearing, Manny won 5 of the last 6. We're going to just let this go another year and see whatever. You sort of push it off to the next year. And then Manny again struggles. Now it's a no-brainer. He has to go. There's no second guessing like, Manny had won 5 of 6. This next guy was awful. You got to go. That new coach has to go that you hired. No, it's that guy had to go. And now you're sort of off the hook. Like, okay, we're looking for the best guy. If that doesn't work out, well, you're trying again. You're not fired as the athletic director. And these athletic directors who have done this for a while, they understand how to keep their jobs. Hell, Blake James kept his job How many years did he work? Because however many that is, that's how many more years than he should have kept his job.
8, 9, yeah.
Yeah. So they know how to keep their jobs. That's all an athletic director honestly cares about. I mean, obviously they want to win games, they want to do well, but they want to keep their jobs. They don't want to be fired, just like nobody wants to be fired. The best way for a new athletic director to not be fired is to not bring in his own guy right away who might fail, which worries me because that's not necessarily in the best interest of the program, if you're following my drift. Like, I could potentially see a smart guy who's an athletic director that's been there, done that, sort of seeing that angle, So I don't know.
I think all these things would be discussed in the interview process. I think the ultimately the president's got to make a decision. I wrote the other day, don't punt, make the damn decision. Like, move on. Like, if you can hire an athletic director this week, great.
Well, if you look, I know you wrote about the president, but the president's putting it off to his aides to decide because the president has no clue. He can, even if these guys went to him and said, "Here's what we're hearing, here's what we think," blah blah blah. Yeah. And he could say, "Well, what do you think?" And they say, "Fire him." And then the president will say, "Okay, fire him." But like, I don't think President Frank is sitting there saying, "I've made my decision after analyzing things." Like, I think that's the last thing on his mind. I think he wants this to be somebody else's problem who then comes with that recommendation at the end of the day.
Yeah, he's in a mess. I mean, Julio Frank is in a mess because he's got different opinions on the board of trustees. Ultimately, they're going to have to sideline the board of trustees most likely because there's not going to be a consensus. And they're going to have to decide whether to enter the big boy arena that's going on right now in college football and pay a coach like a Mario Cristobal $8 million, $9 million a year. And I'm sure that his agent is going to ask for that now because that's the market. The market has been set. And if you're not going to pay it, then you're not going to get one of the in-demand coaches, period. Like, you might get a little bit of a hometown discount with Mario, no argument. Maybe he takes $8 million instead of $9 million, but he's not taking 5 or 6 or like, that's not happening. So, Miami has a lot going on this week. And I just think that, everybody out here, we're, collectively all going to have to be a little patient as they work through it. I can confirm some things like, Manny's contract, the buyout goes down on Wednesday. I do believe that there will be at least an exploratory push to see just exactly what the terms would be if they move on to Mario Cristobal. And then I think that they're going to have to make a decision by the end of the week. Oregon plays in the Pac-12 title game on Friday. And I think that if there's going to be a change, that it would start to take place on Saturday because now you have a countdown to signing day. And I'll tell you right now, if Mario Cristobal's coming into this job, he's going to want to maximize those last, 10, 11, 12 days to get the best signing class that he can get into the building. And so I think it'll all come together here over the next week. There'll be a million rumors. There'll be all kinds of debate and everything else. But I think like by a week from today, we should know what direction this is going in. Now, the concept that we discussed last week, Matt, that Manny Diaz could be back, I don't think has been eliminated yet. I really don't. Until they have a deal with Mario, I don't think that that's off the table because, Manny's dad, I know, is working his trustee angles. And I think that it's an option that they will keep in place until they decide that they have a better option. And if things break down with Mario and they're looking at going after Lane, who probably would be the next guy up, I would think, for them, they might decide that let's just stick with Manny for another year or whatever. So any of these scenarios, I think, could still come into play. So Matt, it's making the Canes Nation crazy. We're on the message boards all day. It's everybody's anxious. There's a lot of opinions. Everybody's very nervous about the university dropping ball and getting it done. What's your thoughts just in general on the mood of the fan base?
I've never seen anything like it. I mean,
I haven't either.
It's like, what's weird about it is, look, everybody knew Miami was going to just blow out Duke. The Duke's just flat out awful. But the funny thing is, if you went on the CaneSport message boards on Saturday at around 4:30 p.m., there were a whole bunch of threads like, man, he's not so bad, like, hey, we won 5 out of 6. We almost beat FSU. Like, there's signs of progress. The young kids look really good. He had all these injuries all year that really decimated the team. So, I don't know if you call them apologists or whatever, but like they were there, and like there's a silent majority, I call it a silent majority, silent minority, I guess, from what I can tell, silent minority that that wouldn't mind if Manny comes back. I mean, I had dinner last night with a couple of friends who are, who have been Golden Canes, who have now lowered their level, but they're boosters, and they're fans, and like they don't mind Manny that much. They think, that he could potentially still succeed. Like they're sort of 50-50 with it. They wouldn't be agitated if he does return. And like that's how I think a lot of the fans are at Miami, because the ones that are on our message boards that are posting, it's like when you're in the newspaper business and you get an email of a complaint, you're supposed to treat that as like 100 complaints, right? Because not everybody is going to sit at their computer and type out their complaint and why they're complaining, so you have to assume there's 100 other people like that. So, just the fact that so many people are complaining, I'm not sure it's 1 to 100 anymore in that ratio, but I think it is maybe 1 to 100 for the ones that are saying Manny's not so bad, and they're like sort of scared of the reaction they'll get. I know that people want to replace Manny don't want to hear that, but that's just how I view things. Like, I think people are scared right now to post on the message board anything pro Manny, and probably with good reason. That's how bad it is. And that's why I say I've never seen anything like it. Usually there's a level of respect among the Cane fans. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, not anymore. If you like Manny Diaz, you're not a Miami fan, go root for somebody else, That's sort of the message board tone. I don't like it. It's sort of bullying. And, I'd like everyone to have a diversity of opinions. I'd like that silent minority to be represented because, it's a free country, man. Like freedom of the press, I'm all for it. And like, I want to hear every side. Like, why are you still on the Manny train? Why can't people let those people have a voice? Because I know they're out there, because I just ate with one of them, Yes. But it's bad. It's bad. And it's going to be bad until Miami makes a decision one way or the other. And if Manny comes back, it's going to be bad for probably until Manny is either gone again or win some of those fans over. Because like after they beat those 2 top 20 teams, like that vitriol had dissipated. We talked about that. It had dissipated. To what have you done lately for me, country? It's a what have you done lately for me message board. People want results now. When you invest in a stock now, it's not like this is for 10 years down the road for my kids. It's, hey, I need $1,000 to go on a vacation next month. Yeah, that's what the message boards are now.
After the game, I was able to ask Manny if he expected to be back, and he punted. And then I asked him again because he didn't answer the question, and you could sense a nervousness. He's hoping that this body of work in the second half of the season earns him another year. But like I said earlier, I think what the University of Miami has to reconcile is what that other year means. If you're going to be sitting there in 12 months in this same exact place, even if you go 8-4 instead of 7-5, or even if you go 9-3 instead of 8-4, and you're just another run-of-the-mill team in college football, and you haven't made advancement in recruiting, which I think it's fairly obvious that Manny probably is not going to be able to do. All you've done is waste another year, which might cost you 2 on the backside. So, I don't know if these guys that are making these decisions understand all that. And I'm not sitting here campaigning for a certain decision, but I am understanding what's at stake here. And the other thing I thought was interesting, Matt, is after the game, like a lot of players took to Twitter to defend Manny Diaz and sort of campaign for them to return. Tyler Van Dyke, I think, started it. He posts, "Love my teammates and love playing for these coaches. Coach Manny Diaz is building something special. This is just the beginning." Players tend to pull for their current coaches. You don't work together to that degree that they do and not build a bond with those you're working with every day. Matt, how does the University of Miami separate the will of the players with the decision they have to make? And how big of a impact do you think this Twitter campaign by the players will play with the university?
Well, it sounds harsh, but the players have nothing to do with this. This has to be a purely business/future of the program decision. And like I've said before, Miami has to be willing to lose money on this decision. You're right. The salary contracts are outrageous. You're going to have to, guarantee a certain number of years, and you're going to have to get a really good staff together. It's going to cost a fortune. And if they have a budget in mind, they may as well just keep Manny Diaz, because throw those budgets out the window, man. You see where the numbers are going. It's going to cost a small fortune, to do what they need to do to bring in the right staff and the right, and the right structure, administration structure with a good athletic director and everything else. I do sort of like they're taking their time. I'm not a fan of rushing things. Like, I know everybody wanted the athletic director already hired and the coach already hired. And, look, I understand why people wanted Manny fired at the midway point of the season and all that. Again, you mentioned buyouts. At the end of the day, this is about the fans, right? Because the fans are the program. And the fans have made it very clear that Manny Diaz has to go. The administration sometimes think they're smarter than the fans, and maybe they are. We'll find out, because the decisions the administration has made over the last 15 or 20 years have not worked. The fans have made their message clear. The administration has heard that message. So now it's a case of, what are they going to do about it? And it's going to be really interesting to see. I think at the end of the day, I don't see how it's tenable to keep Manny Diaz. I really don't. You and I both said for a couple of years that he's just not the right fit. We've seen these practices. We've seen a lack of development really until this year. And if you want to just point to this year, if this was Manny Diaz's first year as the head coach, I would be super optimistic for the future. That's what's weird about it. But, we've seen just like the coaching, and I don't want to call anybody out in particular, but like they hired, a couple of new coaches this year. And when I watch those two guys at practice, like, they're not even participating in practice. They're like literally just throwing balls to defensive guys, and other guys are basically telling the players what to do. Like, you need an entire staff of guys that are going to develop players and guys who are going to be in players' ears actively, not passively. This is not a staff like that, and Manny Diaz put this staff together. And I do love these guys on the staff. They're all super nice guys. But like, you and I have covered teams that won championships here, and the practices sure as hell look nothing like that. And the coaches sure as hell didn't coach like that. And the tenor of the fans, they've had it. So to me, if nothing changes, there's just going to be so much apathy in the fan base. And yeah, they'll come back if Miami wins 10 plus games next year. But do you really want to gamble on that? Whereas you could get these fans, pretty much back on board if Mario Cristobal is hired. And Mario may struggle the first year or two. You could always say, oh, it's Manny's players or whatever. Fans might not be thrilled about it. But at least you bought yourself some time to get this program right.
And there's a base. Like, if a coach like Mario Cristobal comes in, he's not starting from ground zero. There is a base of some good young players to build off of.
Of course. I've already said that they can win 10 games with or without Manny next year. Yeah. What I'm saying is, even if they didn't win those 10 games the next couple of years, Mario has that goodwill. Manny's lost all the goodwill. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And there's, like I said, there is a bottom line to all this that you just got to be willing to see. Look at the Georgia Tech-Georgia game the other day, where Georgia Tech just got totally blown out by Georgia. This is a Georgia Tech team that played Miami down to the final play. Okay. And they didn't even, like, I think it was 42-0 or something. Like, they couldn't even compete against Georgia. Okay. That shows you, just like you saw Miami against Alabama, the disparity between the top teams in college football and this ACC middle of the pack abyss that Miami is in. That alone should answer the questions. Now, you got to be able to get to an agreement. If you do make the decision to move on from Manny, you got to be able to get to a contract. Oregon is going to not just sit there with their hands in their pockets. They are going to be very aggressive. They're going to make Mario Cristobal a very strong offer to try to get him to stay there. I mean, he's playing for the third straight Pac-12 title on Friday. If he wins, they're in the Rose Bowl 2 of the last 3 years. They were on the cusp of making the playoff this year. They really only lost one game. The other game got stolen from them. So, they're gonna fight, and Miami is going to have to spend more money than they even thought they were going to spend when they said they were going to amp up the expenses, and they're going to have to weigh that against giving Manny Diaz a couple really good coordinators, maybe build a new locker room, maybe improve a few other things facility wise, and say, hey, we've improved the program, we've invested in the program, and it'll be about probably $10 million less than what they're going to have to spend the other way. But listen, all we can do is hope they do the right thing, hope they make the right decision, keep watching it. We'll keep reporting it to you. Try not to get too caught up in all the crazy rumors going around. And there are a lot of them. I mean, one of them was that Miami met with Mario Cristobal on Sunday when he was in town visiting his sick mom. I highly doubt that. I don't think Mario would have a meeting like that. That's why you have agents. The agents handle all that business. I would be real surprised if, while he was in town visiting his mom, he met with representatives of Miami. I'm not totally dismissing it, but I would be surprised. And that was just one rumor. There were rumors about Manny Diaz's dad and Manny, and it's a crazy time, and it's very, very tough for everybody because it's a very emotional time as well. But we'll keep working to navigate everybody through it. All right, Matt. Also on the website today, couple recruiting stories, a deep analysis into where things stand with recruiting right now. That's a pretty tight situation. I mean, the coaches are out on the road. Manny Diaz was making home visits on Sunday, but there's not a large number of players, Matt, that Miami's still recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, there's not. I mean, they've made no secret about it that it's going to be, a smaller class and all that. But the main story at the top of the website this morning really breaks it all down, using various sources and talking to different kids and people around the kids for sort of what's going on with everybody. So I just would recommend, everyone take a look at that. There's, a couple of new names that have really come into focus here, and updates on all these guys. So yeah, I mean, I won't go through them all, but it's a long list.
We'll let people read
There's
it.
A couple of guys that got dropped. Daniel Lyons, Dante Anderson, no longer in the picture for Miami, and some other notes like that. So yeah, I encourage everybody
You've been talking about those guys for weeks, Matt. I'm applauding that one, because if you didn't really want them to begin with, whether you're staying or going, don't load the roster up with guys that are just average players or guys that may never play here. To me, that's the best thing that Manny's doing these days in recruiting. All right. Also a story on quarterback Ja'Cory Brown, who, as you know, is on the Miami commit list. But Matt, there's a couple interesting schools that have started recruiting him that have a couple interesting head coaches.
I knew you'd like that.
Oregon has started recruiting Ja'Cory, which obviously allows Mario Cristobal to engage in conversation. And Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin has also started recruiting Ja'Cory Brown, which allows Lane to start, building a little relationship there, just in case he gets the Miami job. Crazy times. And the other, Moten, the defensive lineman, has also been being recruited pretty heavily by Oregon lately. So that's a little bit of a similar situation. So kind of funny, to see these coaches kind of maneuvering a little bit just in case they get the job late. They've got a little bit of a leg up in recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, with Ja'Cory, it looks like if he does wind up taking a visit, it'll probably be to Ole Miss. I talked to him for a while last night, and he loves Miami. He doesn't really want to go anywhere else. The way he phrased it was more like, what if they don't want me? Which makes sense because he's a high school kid. You don't know who's going to come in. They look at his film, who's going to be the coordinator. Is it the same system? Do they want him? Do they want to bring in a transfer quarterback? It's a little unnerving for a guy who, basically is graduating early and enrolling early, and doesn't quite know what the future holds for him. So I get it, and he's going to be very candid with Miami coaches this week when he talks to them and discuss this with them and let them know, hey, I may have to take a visit with my family because I need a backup plan. Like, what if you hire a coordinator in the next week or a head coach in the next week or whatever the case may be? And I'm not in their plans. I need somewhere to go. And I totally get it. And I hope Miami fans understand that because it's totally reasonable to do that.
All right. We've also got our weekly Tracking the Commits feature. So you can take a look at what the commits did this past weekend in the high school football playoffs. If you missed it yesterday, we've got our fifth quarter feature, which takes a look. It's a Q&A that I engage in with the fans. It really has gone on for 24 hours and a lot of good stuff in there. I urge you to take a look at that if you haven't yet. We've got our By the Numbers feature where we break down the snap counts from the Duke game and how everybody performed in that game. And then we also have a story about Miami basketball's game in Orlando against Alabama and how things just totally fell apart in the second half. This Canes basketball team was pieced together in the transfer portal with guys coming back. They're struggling for chemistry. They really struggled on the defensive end of the floor in the second half yesterday. And the clock is ticking very fast before ACC starts playing. Jim Larinaga's got quite a challenge ahead of him to get this team playing well before the ACC schedule begins. So a lot of things for you guys to dig into on the website this morning. We'll keep chasing on all these rumors and developments in the Miami coaching situation. It promises to be a very active week in that regard. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us today on Good Morning CaneSport. We'll be back at you as news develops this week with CaneSport Right Now shows, and we'll see you tomorrow morning on the next Good Morning CaneSport. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.